August 24th, 1989, New York City. Inside Major League Baseball headquarters, a private meeting is taking place. Pete Rose sits at a conference table with his attorneys. Across from him are league officials and investigators. The room is sealed from the public. Pete Rose is the most accomplished hitter in baseball history. 4,256 career hits, 3 World Series championships, 17 All-Star selections. None of it matters here. On the table is a 5-page agreement. It resolves an investigation into gambling. For years, Pete Rose placed bets with illegal bookmakers. He bet while he was a Major League Baseball manager. He bet on baseball games involving his own team. Major League rules are explicit. Any player or manager who bets on games involving their own team is permanently banned. If he signs the document, Pete Rose accepts lifetime ineligibility from Major League Baseball. There will be no hearing, no trial, no appeal. He signs. With that signature, baseball's all-time hit leader is banned from the sport for gambling on the game he managed. The decision is final. This meeting is not the beginning of the story. It is the result of years of gambling, mounting debt, and repeated warnings that were ignored. To understand how Pete Rose lost everything, the story has to start at the beginning. Pete Rose was born on April 14, 1941, in Cincinnati, Ohio. His father, Harry, was a semi-professional football player who worked at a bank during the week. On weekends, he competed. He instilled one principle in his son: never give up. Pete was small for his age. He was held back a year in high school. No major league team wanted him. He was too short, too slow, too ordinary. But his uncle was a scout for the Cincinnati Reds. In 1960, the Reds signed him for $7,000. During a 1963 spring training game against the New York Yankees, Rose drew a walk. Most players jogged to first base. Rose sprinted. Yankees pitcher Whitey Ford watched him run. "Look at Charlie Hustle out there." It was meant as an insult. Rose made it his identity. Rose won the National League Rookie of the Year award in 1963. By 1970, the Cincinnati Reds had assembled one of the greatest teams in baseball history. Johnny Bench behind the plate, Joe Morgan at second base, Tony Perez at first. They called it the Big Red Machine. In May 1975, Rose moved from left field to third base to make room for George Foster. The Great 8 starting lineup was complete: Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Tony Perez, Pete Rose, Dave Concepcion, George Foster, Ken Griffey, Cesar Geronimo. They played 80 games together across 1975 and 1976. The record was 64 wins and 16 losses, an .800 winning percentage. The Reds won the World Series in 1975, defeating the Boston Red Sox in 7 games. It was one of the most dramatic World Series ever played. Rose was named Series MVP. They won again in 1976, sweeping the New York Yankees. The 1976 Reds remained the only team in baseball history to go undefeated through an entire multi-year postseason. Rose was the engine. He didn't have the strongest arm or the fastest legs. He had something else. He never stopped working. He never stopped competing. He never backed down. In 1978, Rose left Cincinnati as a free agent. The Philadelphia Phillies signed him to a 4-year, $3.2 million contract. It made him temporarily the highest-paid athlete in team sports. In 1980, Philadelphia won the World Series. Rose had his 3rd championship ring. In 1984, Rose returned to Cincinnati as player-manager. He was 43 years old. He was chasing Ty Cobb's all-time hits record of 4,191. The record had stood for 57 years. On September 8, 1985, Rose tied the record with a single against the Chicago Cubs. On September 11th at Riverfront Stadium, Rose came to the plate against San Diego Padres pitcher Eric Show. The count went to 2-1. Show threw a slider. Rose hit a clean single to left field. Hit number 4,192. The game stopped for 7 minutes. The crowd of 47,237 stood and roared. Rose stood at first base and cried. He thought of his father. He thought of Ty Cobb. Baseball Commissioner Peter Ueberroth declared that Rose had reserved a prominent spot in Cooperstown. He was wrong. Rose finished his career with 4,256 hits. He holds the record for most games played at 3,562. most at-bats at 14,053. He made the All-Star team 17 times at 5 different positions. No one has come close to his hits record since. The quality that made him baseball's greatest worker could also destroy him. Pete Rose grew up around gambling. Horse racing was popular in blue-collar Cincinnati. His father bet on horses. His neighbors bet on horses. Gambling was a weekend pastime. Rose started betting on horses in the 1970s. He was making good money by then. He could afford to lose a few $100s at the track. At first, it was entertainment. Then it became something else. He expanded to football, then basketball. He would sit in front of 3 television sets, watching 3 games at once. He kept spiral notebooks to track his bets. He would bet on anything: the coin toss, the first score, the final margin. Pete would bet on anything, with anybody who was in the room, one associate later told investigators. By the early 1980s, Rose was betting heavily and losing more often than he won. The house always wins. Rose knew this, but he kept betting anyway. In 1984, Rose joined a Gold's Gym in suburban Cincinnati. The gym was a gathering place for bodybuilders and gamblers. It was also a clearinghouse for illegal steroids. Rose met Tommy Gioiosa there. Gioiosa was a young bodybuilder who became Rose's companion, his errand boy, his bet runner. He moved into Rose's house. He lived with Rose for 5 years. Rose also met Paul Jansen, a steroid user who would later place bets of $8,000 to $16,000 per day on Rose's behalf. By 1985, Rose was betting on baseball. His principal bookmaker was Ron Peters, a restaurant owner from Franklin, Ohio. Peters later told investigators that Rose bet on up to 10 games per day. The wagers ranged from $2,000 to $10,000 per game. Rose bet on the Reds. He bet while he was their manager. Major League Rule 21, subsection D, is posted in every clubhouse in America. The language is clear. Any player, umpire, or club official who bets on a game involving his own team shall be declared permanently ineligible. Rose had seen that sign every day for 24 years. He knew the rule. He bet anyway. Rose was good at betting on baseball. He knew the game. He knew the pitchers. He knew when his team was likely to win. But he was bad at betting on everything else. The losses mounted. In 1 week in March 1986, he lost $25,500. His largest single bet was $5,500 on the Boston Celtics. He lost. By late 1986, Rose owed Ron Peters $34,000. Peters stopped taking his bets until he paid. Rose also owed money to bookmakers connected to organized crime in New York and Rhode Island. The threats began. Rose admitted under oath that a bookie had once threatened to burn his house down and break his kids' legs if he didn't pay him. He was in debt to dangerous people. He needed money. He kept betting. Major League Baseball warned him repeatedly. Commissioner Peter Ueberroth called Rose to his office. The message was direct: stop gambling. Rose nodded. He said the right things. He walked out and kept betting. Charlie Hustle never backed down. Charlie Hustle never quit. Charlie Hustle believed he could beat any system, any opponent, any odds. He was about to discover that he could not beat the evidence. In 1988, federal agents investigating drug trafficking at the Gold's Gym began hearing stories about Pete Rose. The gym's owners were dealing cocaine. Some of the dealers were also placing bets for baseball's hit king. Paul Jansen was arrested. Facing prison, he offered to cooperate. He told investigators that Rose had bet on baseball. He said he had evidence to prove it. In February 1989, Commissioner Peter Ueberroth met with Rose. "Did you bet on baseball?" Rose denied it. "I did not bet on baseball," he said. "I did not bet on Cincinnati Reds baseball." On March 20th, 1989, Major League Baseball announced a formal investigation. The next day, Sports Illustrated published an explosive report. 4 men had admitted to placing bets for Rose. Bart Giamatti, the new commissioner, appointed attorney John Dowd to lead the investigation. Dowd was a former federal prosecutor who had built cases against organized crime. He knew how to follow the money. The evidence was overwhelming. On May 9, 1989, Dowd submitted his report to Giamatti. It was 225 pages, accompanied by 7 volumes of exhibits: bank records, telephone records, betting slips, taped conversations, testimony from 40 witnesses. Paul Jansen provided betting slips in Rose's handwriting. The slips documented bets on baseball games, including Reds games, from April 1987. A handwriting analyst confirmed they were authentic. Ron Peters testified that Rose bet on at least 52 Reds games in 1987. The minimum bet was $2,000 per game. Some bets were called in from Riverfront Stadium minutes before the game started. The report documented a troubling pattern. On days when certain pitchers were starting, Rose did not bet on his team. He was using his inside knowledge as manager to inform his gambling. Rose gave a 358-page deposition over 2 days. He denied everything. "Nobody bets Major League Baseball for me," Rose said under oath. Dowd noted that Rose's testimony was contradicted 24 times by 9 witnesses and documentary evidence. The conclusion was direct. Pete Rose bet on baseball. He bet on the Cincinnati Reds during the 1985, 1986, and 1987 seasons. Rose filed a lawsuit against Major League Baseball in Ohio State Court. He accused Giamatti of prejudging his case. He called the investigation a witch hunt. "I'm happy to look into the camera now and say I never bet on baseball," Rose told reporters. But his lawyers saw the evidence. They knew they could not win. On August 23, 1989, Rose's attorneys negotiated a settlement. Rose would accept a lifetime ban. In exchange, Major League Baseball would make no formal finding that he had bet on baseball. Rose would neither admit nor deny the charges. It was a face-saving deal. It allowed Rose to continue claiming innocence. The next morning, Bart Giamatti held a press conference. "The banishment for life of Pete Rose from baseball is the sad end of a sorry episode," Giamatti said. "One of the game's greatest players has engaged in a variety of acts which have stained the game, and he must now live with the consequences of those acts." A reporter asked if Giamatti believed Rose had bet on baseball. "The commissioner believes that Pete Rose bet on baseball." Giamatti urged Rose to reconfigure his life. He said Rose could apply for reinstatement after 1 year. Rose held his own press conference that afternoon. He maintained his innocence. "I never bet on baseball." 8 days later, on September 1, 1989, Bart Giamatti suffered a massive heart attack at his vacation home on Martha's Vineyard. He died that afternoon. He was 51 years old. He had been commissioner for 154 days. His deputy, Fay Vincent, became commissioner. Vincent blamed Rose for Giamatti's death. He said Rose had put the commissioner through his own private agony. The gambling investigation led to a tax investigation. Rose had failed to report $354,968 in income between 1984 and 1987. The money came from autograph signings, memorabilia sales, and gambling winnings. Rose had hidden the income from his accountants because he did not want them to know how much he was gambling. Investigators found cash hidden throughout his house, behind ceiling panels, in his freezer. On April 20, 1990, Pete Rose pleaded guilty to 2 counts of filing false federal income tax returns. On July 19th, he stood before Judge Arthur Spiegel in Cincinnati. "We must recognize that there are 2 people here," Spiegel said. Pete Rose, the living legend, the all-time hit leader, and the idol of millions, and Pete Rose, the individual, who appears today convicted of 2 counts of cheating on his taxes. Today, we are not dealing with the legend. 5 months in federal prison, 3 months in a halfway house, 1,000 hours of community service, a $50,000 fine. Rose served his sentence at the federal prison camp in Marion, Illinois. He was released on January 7, 1991. Baseball's all-time hits leader should have been a first-ballot Hall of Famer. His statistics were overwhelming. His records were unbreakable. His election should have been automatic. But in February 1991, the Baseball Hall of Fame's Board of Directors voted unanimously to ban anyone on the permanently ineligible list from induction. The rule was created specifically for Pete Rose. Rose would have been eligible for the 1992 ballot, 5 years after his last game as a player. Instead, he received 41 write-in votes that were not counted. The doors to Cooperstown slammed shut. For 15 years, Pete Rose maintained his innocence. He gave interviews, he held press conferences, he wrote books, he repeated the same words over and over. "I never bet on baseball. I did not bet on Cincinnati Reds baseball." The evidence said otherwise. The Dowd report was public. The testimony was on record. The betting slips were in his handwriting, but Rose kept lying. In 1999, Rose was named to Major League Baseball's All-Century team. An exception was made to allow him to participate in the pregame ceremony at the World Series. He received the loudest ovation of any player introduced. NBC reporter Jim Gray asked if he was ready to admit that he bet on baseball. "This is a special night," Rose said. "Let's not try to bring me down." On January 8, 2004, Pete Rose published his autobiography, My Prison Without Bars. In it, he finally admitted the truth. "I bet on baseball," Rose wrote. "I bet on my team to win every night because I loved my team. I believed in my team." He never said he bet against the Reds. He said he only bet on them to win. He said his gambling had no effect on how he managed. Rose expected the confession to lead to reinstatement. He expected forgiveness. He expected the Hall of Fame doors to open. They did not. Commissioner Bud Selig saw it as a calculated move to sell books, not genuine remorse. The timing was deliberate. The book was released the same week as the Hall of Fame ballot announcement. Former teammate Joe Morgan wrote, "I haven't seen a genuine apology from Rose yet, nor have I seen any contrition." Rose applied for reinstatement again and again. Each commissioner refused. Pete Rose spent his final years in Las Vegas. He signed autographs at casinos for $1,000 per hour. He would sign anything: baseballs, bats, his own mugshot, copies of the Dowd Report. For extra money, he would inscribe, "I'm sorry I bet on baseball." Every summer, during Hall of Fame induction weekend in Cooperstown, Rose set up shop at a nearby bookstore. He could not attend the ceremonies. He could not enter the hall. But he could sit a few miles away and sign memorabilia for fans who still loved him. "What are they waiting for? Me to die?" Rose asked in 2015. On September 30th, 2024, Pete Rose died at his home in Las Vegas. He was 83 years old. The cause of death was heart disease. He had been at an autograph signing the day before. Pete Rose holds the record for most hits in Major League Baseball history. He holds the record for most games played. He holds the record for most at-bats. He is not in the Hall of Fame. He spent 35 years banned from the sport he gave his life to. He spent 15 of those years lying about why. When he finally told the truth, it was too late. The same qualities that made him baseball's greatest worker made him incapable of stopping, admitting fault, or accepting consequences. He could not quit gambling. He could not quit lying. He could not quit being Charlie Hustle. That is where this story ends.